Hello everyone, Santier here with more Let's Make a Game Astral Collision. It's been one strange week, so I started working on journal entries, and I actually made a program to help me do journal entries. For those who may be not familiar with this plugin, it's been a while since we've looked at it. The journal entries are done with this plugin right here that I wrote, and you'll notice it says here the standard text description is 51 characters by 14 lines, and the character text description is 38 characters by 14 lines. Same vertical height, but different widths, because the characters have a spot for the face profile picture in the thing. So if I went to a character category and I went to the teachers, you'll see here it has a thing for the face index and stuff. If I go to what I've been working on is I've been working on locations. I've been working on Kendra locations in part, and so this is for the guild house. And so there's a thing here that has the text for it, but this thing doesn't show me the exact dimensions that are available to me. And it's a bit tedious to try to keep track of all that in here and making sure that I'm not going too wide or too long. I have a thing that I've done to make it a little bit easier to check the width. So you see this right here. I by default have something that's the width that fits. But then I have to keep track of lines, and it doesn't all fit inside one thing, and it's just a giant pain in the rear end. So I wrote a separate program right here that all this does is just a place where I can just type stuff in Courier New, which is a mono-width font, which is the same type of font that is used. A mono-width font is basically where each character takes the same amount of space. So an M is just as wide as an L. For example, whereas a lot of fonts are not mono width, they have a variable width. So L's and M's are not usually the same width. But anyway, mono width font takes up the same amount of space. It makes it a lot easier to handle, and it's this default type of font that RPG Maker uses. So this has the proper width. This goes 51 characters wide. If I just put a bunch of F's here or something, it'll start scrolling and it'll go off, and I have this verify button that I can hit, and it'll be like, oh, the longest line is too long, but the number of lines is within parameter. So if I bring this down so that way it fits and hit verify, it's like, yay, it fits. And then I have one for character entry that's the same sort of thing. And again, if I went down here, I'm just mashing 5s. You see, oh, I've gone too far. I can identify that. It's warning, verification failed. There's too many lines. So this just in general allows me to be able to have a sense of how much space I have, and it's a lot better to work with than just trying to enter it into the thing by itself. And then I've just copy and paste it, obviously. That's why there's a copy button here. But I put together this very simple program, pretty straightforward. I haven't actually tested to make sure the entries I put in so far are showing up in the thing, but I have added a thing to keep track of it. So I've added an unlock string thing over here. So these are the locations, and then these are the strings that should unlock those locations. Let's just take a quick check, make sure this is working. Because why not? I haven't done it yet. Might as well do it on camera. That's a good idea, right? Sure. Caledon doesn't have one yet. But if I walk in here, yep, Mystical Journal is updated. I updated this text as well. Temple of the Spring of Solemn. Come, bathe in the waters and be renewed. Drink of them and be refreshed. I've also, and you see the Mystical Journal is updated, stepping in here. This book I've modified the text for. It says, this book is ancient. Let's move this over a little bit. Yet miraculously still legible. It claims to be written by Hannah, the first prophet. The writing upon it reads, the sacred spring of Solemn, here preserved for the prophets who will come. Will I be one of them, I wonder? It will be sorely missed in Solemn. At the Creator's direction, I've prepared some healing potions and stored them here with the spring. I will bathe in the waters one last time, unless I am one of the 4 to return, and then I must go. So, this just heals you, and then there's the healing potions here. So I should be able to go into the journal and go to locations, and now the secret shard is here. So when the Creator sundered the world to reflect the 14 sundered peoples, a 15th astral shard was made in secret. It was made to house artifacts and skill sets destined for use by the prophets who would bring healing to the world after the shards were merged back together. I need to make that a past tense. Placed at its heart is a chamber memorializing the progenitors, who are called teachers by their children, and who were taken at the Sundering to live with the Creator in the Eternal City. And now the Forgotten Temple has one as well. I'll let you pause and read it. I definitely need to go through and double check, proofread some of these. I'm also starting to work on some Kendra locations, but those aren't there yet. This also has a thing, and if I go up here, also has a thing. And then I've done one for Kendra. So if I go into Kendra, it updates. And then if I go, it shouldn't pop up again. Good. There's 4 entrances, so I have to check on each entrance. So, and if I go over here, I should get another update if I go in here. Yep. So that one was locations. Yeah, so you can see there's now the Forgotten Tomb. And again, this has lore information. You're welcome to read it. The Vine Forge. Again, more lore information. Kendra now has Guild House as a location. These guild houses are found throughout the cities and villages of Kendra and Kendra. And then I've also done... let's see. There should be one more here. Yeah, Lionel Home, which is a significant one. So let's go there. This one's pretty straightforward to get to. Let's just go out over here. And then stick to the road so we don't have any random encounters because we don't need those. And now I get a journal update here. So if I go into the mystical journal, locations, oh, it's supposed to, but you know what that means. I messed up. And it's not properly doing it. Anyway, I bet if I go in here and I check. No, it's Lionel Home. Oh, that's the problem. It's K, not LS. K for Kendra. LS for Lost Shard is what I was going with, but it's actually a Secret Shard. I've changed that starting area's name around a little bit. This one is important to look at, though. I mean, I don't have to look at it this way, but whatever. That's what I'm going to. I don't want to fight harrowers. Let's just pretend that never happened. There we go. Successfully walked around Kendra without fighting anything. Okay, now this should update. Lionel Home. Founded in the 13th year of Queen Classus's reign, this was the second settlement built by the people of Kendra. That such a thing should be desirable and necessary is testament to the effectiveness of King Bohemus's efforts. Those first settlers named their new home Taurus, and thus it was known for nearly 1,000 years, when it was renamed to Lionel Home on the 100-year anniversary of Sir Lionel's martyrdom, for Taurus had been his birthplace and home. At that time, the now ancient Sir Lionel Academy and Shrine of the Hero were built. Okay, so that's relevant because what you'll see there is I dated things by time into the ruler's reign. Now, I don't know if you remember, but back here in Timeline Land, I had put down some rulers, right? We had Bohemus, and then we had Queen Classus right here. Classus became queen. And then I decided I was going to specify Taurus was founded in her 13th year, which is, 13 years after this of reign, to be clear. And that's when I realized, oh no, if I'm dating things by rulers, which I decided to do, and I like, I'm going to need some rulers. So, behold, some rulers. Let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit. Nope, it's not zooming in. So you're going to just have to have this on full screen and stuff. I apologize for the lack of legibility. But what I ended up doing is there are like 107 rulers. The current king is King Bohemsa II. This has been a process. It is not a done process. It's been a tedious process. I have a lot of ways that I started going about doing this. I started trying to do it by like, oh, here's the year they started to reign. And about there I gave up. And I was determining a reign duration based on that. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to start specifying reign duration and deriving this from the previous reign's start and then how long it went. That's when the next reign starts. And then I had to come up with a bunch of reign numbers for how long reigns were. And that required me to like either make up a bunch of numbers, which I wasn't particularly fond of doing here. So I went to random.org and I'm just like, give me between 5 and 70. And I just started entering those in. And that was tedious and terrible. So I gave up on that process and did the, I think it was around here-ish or so. Yes, here. I got to about here doing that. And I'm like, nope, I'm done with this. So that's where this comes in. Let me scroll maybe not quite that big. I don't know. Hopefully this is legible enough. This is a simple throwaway program. But we have the starting year. So this is basically what I did. Is like if you run this program, I'll show you what it does. If you run it, it just gives you a string of numbers, just a bunch of numbers, and then it says current. These numbers are going to be between like 1 and 94, but kind of centered around various things. This is like the third time ever it's been run. The first time I forgot this line of code that actually gave me the list of reigns. The second time I ran it, I just used that one. But what it does is it just grabs, here's the starting year. I've done all of the previous ones. And then whilst the starting year is less than the current year that the king is reigning in, just create a reign. The starting year gets the reign added to it because that's now the year we're at. If the starting year is now, if it's greater than or equal to, in other words, if we're trying to generate a ruler that is starting after the current ruler is dead, so like the one that hasn't started reigning yet at the time the game is played, then we just append current, and the loop will end. Otherwise, we append that reign duration into our lovely list with a new line. And then, of course, I need to assign the results. Now, the way that I'm developing reign durations, like, I can't just use a straight up, like, standard, like, mathematical function, because I want it to have more results, like a bit of a result cluster, to where I will get kind of a range, but I want kind of a standard deviation type thing where it starts off with, like, a limited amount, and then it goes up, and then it goes down. I don't know how visible that was. It's really hard to do stuff for someone else that's supposed to be mirrored when you're not thinking that way. But anyway, I start by generating a number between 1 and 31. Or actually between 1 and 30. Keep in mind that this next function, this is exclusive, which means it does not include this value. So it's between 1 inclusive and 31 exclusive. In interval notation, that would be like the, is it like that? No, it's the other way. Like this, interval notation, that means this is included, this is not. So it goes up to that. Let's just get rid of that. So that's something that's important to be aware of. And then I basically just like, this is generate growth, and it just grabs some random numbers, some number of random numbers, and sums them all up. And this is going to be a random number between 0 and the value passed in here. Again, this is exclusive. So what I do is I'm just like, give me basically a random number of D8s where it goes 0 to 7. Is that right? No, it goes 0 to 8. Give me up to 8, between 0 and 8 dice that have 9 sides, 0 to 8 sides. It's D9s, whatever. but it's a maximum of 64, total of 94 year reign. Unlikely, but child ruler could do this. And then just returns that value. Because like what I wanted is I wanted stuff to kind of cluster. We're just gonna talk some math right now. I wanted stuff to cluster. Any sort of like normal function is going to have one y output for any given x value. So I'm putting in an x value, theoretically, like just putting in an x value. I'm going to get out some y value, but there's only one per. So I wanted it to be able to like cluster a bit because I wanted the curve to kind of like get thicker. Anyway, it made sense in my head at the time. It's not a function if it returns two different y values. So, for example, the inverse of x squared is actually plus or minus the square root of x, not the square root of x, because x squared will destroy the negatives, because it's like -2 and +2 are both 4 when you square it, or like -3 and +3 are both 9 when you square them. So that means the inverse is, if you undo that, it's either 3 or -3, but you don't know which. So that the parabolic graph, one of those guys, just it lays on its side, right? But that fails the vertical line test to determine if something's a function because it has two possible values for any given x value, except for the vertex, the origin vertex or whatever you want to call it. And so, long story short, if I wanted something that could kind of bunch up like that, I needed to figure out a different way of doing it. And like I was originally thinking about just rolling dice, but rolling dice, if I don't have zeros, has a problem. So this is basically like rolling dice with like a base thing that's added onto, and then it's just it's not necessarily the most thought out algorithm, but it's good enough. It got me what I want. So I threw this program together, got some values, and it just generates however many I needed. It just figures out however many I needed and generates that many. And then I threw them into my spreadsheet over here. And then I began naming people. And once you know it, naming people is hard. So I just started like trying to figure out trends and naming, and so we have some like variant sort of trends. So like here we have classis, and here we have calcis. Calcis is kind of like, that's the name that ends up kind of becoming popular. These first several are not repeated. There's a bunch of firsts. Basically, I was expressing some of this to my sister, and she's like, well, there's like a King Henry VIII, and it's like, yeah, and there's like a King Louis XIV who's famous. Like, they maybe reuse names a lot in European royal families. Certain names just get popular and get reused and brought back and things like that. So I have 3,000 years worth of rulers, and I'm filling out names for them. And I'm like, you know what? They're just going to repeat stuff a lot. I do use some common themes. I use fragments of Kendra and Onara in various different places. Like Konar right here is obviously got Onara root in it. Starting names with O's and K's is very popular. So Kendira, Osiron, Kendis, Calcis. You can see another Kendira. Bomar here. Bohemus is another one, and Classis is another one. So those kind of like get some variants on them. Onarka is obviously a reference to Onara. There's some other things going on too. Do I have Okendris the second? I don't know that I do. There are a few names that don't follow that, like Nandora is kind of not quite like that. Hilkenda is Nalendon. They don't necessarily have repeats. Let me mark that one. I'm just going to insert a note. Do I have a second yet? Some of the idea here, Ulfons starts showing up a bunch, but Lystra. Some of the idea here is that sometimes rulers die young or otherwise cease to be rulers. And I have kind of this idea of like, oh, they were like the third child or the third in line, but then they became the ruler somehow. Things like that, where just stuff led to like they named the first child the traditional name, and then the second child is maybe less traditional. Third child even less traditional, things like that. So then you get some of these like, oh, they're not repeated, or like these new firsts like Onaris, or like Lisla right here. Lisla is like, she wasn't intended to be queen, she just like became queen unexpectedly, sort of thing. That's what I'm going to be working into the lore. We also get a streak here that starts right here, King Lyandra. So this is a combination of Kendra and Lionel. Sir Lionel's been dead for like 400 years, but starts becoming popular around here. So I start doing this, and I start working through this, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to build this up. I still need to add some names to it, but you know, it's coming along. And then I realized I'm going to need to be able to add these to my timeline, because I have this lovely timeline right here. And it's really, really nice to be able to see where things fit in regarding the royalty. So then I modified this. I did a couple of things. First of all, I added some shortcut buttons to these because for some ludicrous reason I didn't have them. I don't know if you remember or not, but there was a bug that was making it so that way if I like, say, change this one to be 150, everything after it would like, that might not be a problem, but like if I added stuff, it would like reposition things weirdly and improperly, and I fixed that bug. That one was a weird one. So it has to do with the like positioning of the scroll bar. This position like offset stuff, but the offset wouldn't apply to the first set and then would apply to the next set, and it's just weird, or some opposite thing of that. So it took a while to find and like fix and all that sort of stuff, but it's fixed now, which is really nice. I also added this bulk add feature. So I can separate things by pipes, which is what this character is, right? That's a pipe. Or I can separate things by tabs. So I've put another version over here because I need these to be actual raw values, and a lot of these are formula. So I had to copy and paste them that way. Plus, I also needed the year on the left side, not on the right side, and then I'm going to be able to have some blurbs. It's a little bit hidden by my face, but some blurbs about just like, give me a little bit of information about this person. But what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to, like, say, take a chunk. I'm not going to be saving this, but I can paste it in here. Then I can hit add, and it will just go through, and it will add all of them, which is going to make that a lot easier. Obviously, the blurb is going to be able to go into the description tab. That's how the thing works. So if you look at the bulk thing, I know it's small, so it's hard to read, so I'll just read it for you. It says, use this to add multiple items to a timeline. Does not support split timelines. Each entry needs to at least have a date, one entry per line, each using the format date, event name option, which is optional, and then the event description optional, all in one line. It's always going to put a name. You can't just like, I mean, you could skip it. You could go like Bob pipe. No, not Bob. Bob's not a date. 9,000 pipe DBZ jokes. And add that, and it would be down here. And yep, it skips empty entries, so it's just gonna put the name there and whatever. But you know, I'm not saving this obviously because this is all kind of messed up, and I need to have all the stuff in here. But just to give you an idea of how it works, and then I can pop up this thing and look at where the things are with rulers and stuff. So that's really cool, and I can see like, oh, okay, so it was during this person's reign that this thing happened. Like, during Queen Lystra the First, the Telendil mines run dry, and Iron Hill is founded. And then during Lystra the Second, Lionel is born, and you know, towards the end of her reign, and then King Ulfons the Second starts reigning, and the Adventurers Guild and everything happens during his reign, and then Ulfons the Third is now in a new paradigm, right? As he becomes king, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be really useful during King Osiron II, Torsus renamed Lionel home, presumably, unless that's actually like more space between it than it looks. But it's a work in progress. So yeah, working on that was a thing that I did. There's a bunch of like just making sure it worked and stuff. No, I do not want to save. And then, yeah, I've been working on names. that's kind of been my week, or in terms of like the stuff that I've done with this. Yeah, I guess there's not a whole lot more to say. Like I said, started working on journal entries, realized I needed to start filling in stuff with rulers. A few things looking forward. First of all, I do need to finish filling out all of these names. There's not a whole lot left. There's like six here, another chunk here, and another chunk here. It's almost done. And then I can start writing some more blurbs. I want to get a lot of the like lore stuff written. That's just something that feels kind of like a next major step to get done, or like to begin getting work in on, I should say. There's obviously a lot more stuff that needs to get done. I'm just trying to build up the layers of Kendra, and that's what's happening. Stuff that I know that I'm going to do with all of this stuff that I'm writing down with rulers is right here is the Royal Mausoleum, or the Royal Catacombs, or whatever. You go inside there, you're going to be greeted with a statue, or like the tombs of Kendra and Onara, and then you can continue down into the rest of the royal catacombs. And there's going to be all of them in there. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a big place. So that's something that's coming up. That's going to be exciting to put together. Yeah, I feel like that's most of it. It's not been the most eventful week. But it's in terms of exciting things to talk about. But lots of working on getting bits of lore in, and lots of making up names and trying to find solutions to other problems of hey, I need to have some names here. So I need to have some dates. How am I going to get dates? How am I going to get names? How am I going to do all these things? And it's a process of figuring out how I'm going to do this stuff as much as it is doing it at times. So, well, I think that's going to be it. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, hopefully next time we'll have more names, we'll have more lore. Don't know if we'll have more gameplay features or not. We'll see. But until then, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and goodbye.